Hi, everybody. We are going to paint our sea turtle here. You're going to get a kit, and the kit is going to have the shape in it. It's also going to have some foam brushes in with it. So you'll have a big one and a couple of little ones, and then a makeup applicator. You're also going to have little containers of paint, but for time and waste, I'm going to keep mine on a plate. And you're going to also have a little brush in there to get some of the little details in the kit, in the painting. So I'm going to have your turtle taped off for you to start, so you don't have to worry about finding tape and getting that for the project. So what we're going to do first is we're going to remove the little baby turtle from the background and set it aside. We're going to do our letters first, and then we are going to do our background. So while these are drying, we'll work on our background. So you're going to take your makeup sponge, holding it by the skinny side, using the fat side. We're going to take a little bit of paint. You can put this on your plate. That will be in your kit if you want. You're going to take just a little tiny bit and tap some off. So I put it in the puddle of paint and then I tap some off so that it's not too much on here. Then you're going to lightly tap that paint onto your little word here that says welcome. And again, you'll have some tape there that tapes off the word so that when you're dabbing it on, because it's such a small section, you need that tape there so that it doesn't get on your turtle. You're going to go ahead and tape this off. Pat this out, sorry. Give it just a little bit more paint if you need to. If it's too light, you didn't get enough onto the first spot. And then we're going to set this aside and let it dry. Now this is wood sucks up the paint pretty good, so we may need to put a second coat on there when we see it's dry. But as you can see here, it's very little, less is more, and you don't want to use a lot on your brush because it'll go down into the cracks there. What's not going to come in your kit is a wet wipe. So if you feel like you need one, which you may want to grab one or have somebody bring you one. This is a plain board, and we're going to use just a plain paper towel, and we're going to take the paper towel and just go and get all the different, like it probably has a little sawdust on it. So we're going to wipe that off. I'm going to move our turtle out of the way for a minute, and we're going to use our biggest brush, which is this one right here. And we're going to use just white paint, put it in the white paint here. And again, you can leave your paint in your cups, but for the bigger brush, you may want to take your paint out just because I don't think this will fit in your portion cup that I'm going to give you with your paint. You're going to go back and forth, side to side, whichever way works best for you. Cover your whole board. And we're letting our letters dry, so in case we need to do a second coat on them. And we got to let them dry to move the tape around. I'm just going to move my project up a little bit so that I don't paint on it. I'm going to do a nice thin coat. And then we'll go back and we will put a second coat on in just a minute. I like to get a first coat on first and then go back and do the second coat. Now, if your paint does go over the edge, on the outside edge, that is laser burned. It's a laser piece of wood. Just take the wet paper towel and wipe it up. The direction that you put the white paint on really doesn't make that much of a difference because your turtle is going to go on there. You're also going to distress it. You just basically want to cover the blank wood. And I just keep turning it until I get to all the spots I need to. When you're going over the holes, just make sure you go lightly so that you don't get it down in the hole. If you press gently, it should not get paint down in the hole, even if you're going over it. It should just hit the high surface. So I'm going to let this dry for just a second and see if I need a second coat. or if I'm going to go right into distressing it. You can always take the paper towel if you go over the edge and just run it along the edge like this to gather any paint. If you do that and you see a little bit of black on your paper towel, that's okay, because that's from the wood being laser burned on. That's how they cut the wood, is with a laser. So we're going to set our white piece aside just for a second to let it dry. And now we're going to check our words on our turtle. So as you can see here, it faded just a little bit after I painted it because it dries into the wood. So I'm going to put a second coat on my turtle. Again, using just a little bit of paint, tapping some off the extra, making sure there's not a ton on here. And I'm just going to go back and put a second coat on this. Sorry if the camera's bouncing a little, it's because the table is, the stand is on the table. As you can see, it's a nice thin layer. And like I said, less is more. The least amount you have in here, the less chances you're going to have it go all down in the cracks here. Then you have to clean it all out. And if that does happen, I would suggest using a Q-tip or something of that kind of nature to clean it out. I will not be including a Q-tip in your kit because generally it doesn't happen, but if it does, you can use a little Q-tip, just wet it very damply and then go back and try to get it cleaned out. So now that I did that second coat there, we're going to multitask through our project. I think this needs just a little bit more paint. So I'm going to just take my brush and go back and add a little bit of a second layer, not a thick coat, very thin. You'll have 2 ounces of white paint, and that should be plenty to complete this project, even with all the mixing that we're going to be doing. I'm just putting a second coat back on. This side I've done the second coat, this side I have not. You can see just a little bit of the wood shining through. And again, we're going to distress this, so I really wouldn't be too concerned about the wood showing through. It's supposed to look a little rustic, so it's all right if it does. I'm using the bigger foam brush to do the backboard just because it takes less time and it covers more territory. Okay, so once you have your second coat done, what you can do is you can use the same big brush. I just need to, I have a fingerprint there. That out. You can use the same big brush and you can dip it into the dark blue. So you'll have 2 different colors of blue. You'll have a light blue and a dark blue. You can just take the end of the brush and gently tap it into the blue with the same brush. Tap a little bit off on your napkin like this, and then take this big foam brush and glide it lightly, very lightly, ginger touch, all the way across the board. Very lightly. You don't want to have too much paint on there. You want to have just a little bit. So again, I needed a little bit more to do the bottom and put some on my brush. I'm going to tap some off just because you don't want it to be too much. Gingerly run that across your board. Now, if you feel like you have too much on there, you can always take the white back, some white, and go back over that blue, whatever you choose to do. And you can do as little or as much as you want. As you can see, I put a little bit more on this one than on this one, just because I feel like the welcome needs a little bit of blue to stand out behind it. So I put a little bit more in there. So once you have it the way you like it, you're going to let this part dry. And we're going to work on our turtle some more. So set that aside. Next, we're going to take our tape off of the outside here so we can put some on the words now. So there's a couple of pieces that you'll have here. Just hold on to them. Do not crunch them up just yet because you're going to be able to reverse this so that you can paint these. So what we're going to do is just take our tape and put it on the white part so that it doesn't get on your words now. The colors don't get on your words. You won't need all of this tape, but it's good to just keep it on the side just in case you need it. So I'm taking the blue tape and I'm just going to reverse it so that I'm covering up the white part of the word. So just put it on the word, covering it up. And if your word isn't dry, just give it a few more minutes to let it dry. It'll be easier for you. And you can rip it to your satisfaction as well. So you just want to make sure you cover up some of the white where the pieces touch. So for instance, on the outside edges, you want to cover that up. Then you want to cover up where your baby turtles are going to touch the white. And press gently, because if you press too hard, you could break the letters on the middle part. So just press gently. If it's not sticking, that means your paint's still wet. So give it just a few more minutes. Just pause the video and give it just a few more minutes to dry. And on the baby turtles, you want to make sure that you don't cover up the leg here. So if you need to bend this piece back just a little bit, this piece is going to cover it up. So I'm just bending that piece back a little bit so that I get it. And then you're going to put this piece over here on this side. So as you can see, what I did was I reversed the tape, just covering up the letters, making sure I could still see the baby turtles and then not touching the letters. So this outside will be a color and we don't want to get that color on the inside. So then you're going to need a small brush. And we're going to paint all of our turtle this lighter green first. This green right here. And it doesn't really matter which way you paint the green on. You're going to have to probably do 2 coats because it's a lighter color. Now, if you want to use the darker green for your turtle, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to paint the baby turtles as well in the green, and then we're going to go back and put some yellow on top of them. Now this is wood, so you will see a little bit of lines in your painting, a little bit of streaking. It's okay. It's not meant to be perfect. Wood shapes are never perfect. But they are so cute. You have a couple of different color options you can do for your turtle. So if you don't like the color options we have here, you can use the colors that are given to you in the kit and you can make it any color you'd like. A lot of folks just follow along with the color scheme because it's a no-brainer. It's easier. That is completely up to your creativity, whatever you'd like to do. There's nothing saying that you have to do it the way that I'm doing it. All right, so once you have a coat of the green on there, if you want to go back and just kind of touch it again a little bit, give it just a second to dry. We'll let that dry for a second. Take a water break. My water bottle's holding the cord back, so that's why it popped in there. This takes just a few minutes to dry, not long. And you can do a second coat if you'd like. And I'll just show you the difference between a first coat and a second coat. So on this flipper, I did a second coat, and you can see that this part doesn't have a second coat and it's a little bit grainy. You can see it. The second coat covers up a little bit more. If you like the grainy look and the beach, I call it the beachy look. If you like the beachy look, you can leave just one coat. If you want to cover more of the turtle, go ahead and put a second coat on. And go to the part where you started first, because that's going to be the most dry for you. Bottom. Remember, if you want to do a second coat on your baby turtles, feel free. If not, then you can just leave them as they are. We're going to put a thin layer of yellow on there to accent them anyways. So once you have your second coat of the green on, you're going to let it dry for just a minute. And then we're going to do some more in here. So while this is drying, you can take this tape off if you want, or you can leave it on for a few more minutes until we do the coloring in the middle here. That is completely up to you. So what we're going to do next is we're going to make the lighter blue color here. So you're going to take your lighter blue that you have, and I'm going to take a scoop of it away and put it with some white. So I'm going to take 2 scoops of that lighter blue and mix it with a little bit of white over here on the side. And I want it to be just a little bit lighter than this, so I'm going to take 1 more scoop, and my paint kind of squirted out on my plate, so I'm going to just push it over there. You will get a cup in your kit as well, and you'll need to put just a little bit of water in that so that you have something to rinse your brush off in between. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take our brush and we're going to paint a big blue swoosh here, like this. Then we're going to go and do a second one over here. And this is just still a little wet, so if you want to let it dry a few more minutes, it might be a good idea. We'll do another one up here in between the shoulder and the head. And because these are still wet, I'm going to have to go back and do a second coat. So just pause the video for a few minutes, let it dry so you don't see the green coming through. If you want to speed up dry time, you can always use your blow dryer if you have one. I don't have one with me. It's in my car for class tomorrow. But if you let it dry completely, you won't see the green coming through. You can give it just a second. I'm going to let this dry for just a second and then I'll go do a second coat. Right now I'm going to rinse out the color because it has a lot of green in it. I'm going to rinse that out. While I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of yellow and put it on my little baby turtles, because you don't really have to let that dry to do this part. And all I'm doing is taking the brush and just putting a little bit of a highlight of the yellow on there. I don't know if you can see it. It just separates them a little bit from the green turtle, the big green turtle. Just makes them another shade. And I am purposely leaving a little bit of paint on them just to make them look a little bit like a shell or an accent. So I'm almost like tapping this paint on. And again, you can do this any way you like. This is just a suggestion. I'm going to rinse out the yellow. We're going to go back and put a second coat of the light blue on. I have a water droplet on my brush, so I'm just washing it out. Still not all the way dry. So we'll give that just a second more. And rinse my brush again. I'm not too worried about the edges because I'm going to make that a different shade of blue. And then the inside part, I'm going to make that a darker blue. I just want this to dry a little bit more. So we'll give it just a second more. I'm going to add just a little bit more white to my baby blue. And try this one more time. It just needs to dry just a little bit more. You're not seeing as much of the green coming through now. All right, so that looks pretty good. We're going to let that dry for just a second. While that's drying, we're going to go mix up some of the darker blue with a little bit of white. So we're going to rinse out our brush. I always dry my brush off on the paper towel after just because of the water on it. And I kind of roll my brush, if it's a round one, out just a little bit. So I'm going to take a big scoop of the dark blue, 2 scoops actually, and I'm going to take a little bit of white and mix that together. Just to make it a little bit lighter, just because putting it on just by itself will be very translucent. So we're going to do this first, and then we're going to go back and put some of the darker blue on top. So again, I'm rolling out my brush, just getting some of that extra paint out of there so it's not all in the barrel. You can also take that and wipe it off on your napkin like that. to get that extra paint out. So what we're going to do next is we're going to do a scallop all the way around the edge of the turtle. So I'm going to start here at the very top, and I'm just going to draw a line right here. The reason being is because the scallop's going to come inward. I'm going to draw a line here. Here we don't really need to draw a line, but I'm going to draw one here and one here. The reason we're doing that is because, like I said, the scallop is going to go inward. So we want it to go inside. So here you can just make a swoop like this. And just going to make little half circles all the way around. And this is just the first coat. So if it's not perfect, it's okay. And putting it on top of the wet paint. Again, just pause in between. Put your video on pause and then let this dry just a little bit more. The reason I keep saying that is because wet paint pulls up wet paint. So it's going to pull the paint up. We don't want to do that. So again, you're making little half circles. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be all the same shape. You're going to do that all the way around. If you want to wait to do it on that part, feel free, because mine's really picking it up there. Not so bad on the first one I did. They don't all have to be the same shape, the same size. It can be however you'd like them. And in the lighter blue spots, you don't want to cover it up all the way, but you definitely want to get some in there. Okay. So now this blue here, we're going to let this dry for just a second. And then we're going to go back with the darker blue and put that on top. So if you want to do one more swoop of this color, feel free. And again, this can be done in any color combination you want it to be. It does not have to be the colors I'm picking. If you want to do your dots yellow, you can. I mean, your swoops, your scallops, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to let that dry for just a second. And while this is drying, I'm going to rinse out my brush again. We're going to need that color again, so you don't have to get rid of it. Your kit is going to include the darker green as well. So if you want to do your turtle in the darker green, you can, or you can use the lighter green like I'm using with mine. So this is the darker green. If you also take the darker green and you take a scoop of white and then a scoop of this color and you mix those two colors together, it gives you a pretty teal color. Looks like that. So if you want to use that color for an accent or make your whole turtle this color, whatever you'd like to do, that's completely up to you. But instead of using the darker blue on this one, I'm going to use the teal next to mine. So while I'm letting this outside part dry, I'm going to take my teal color and I'm going to go back around the light blue dots and just make this on the outside part. And again, you can do this in the lighter blue or the darker blue, or you can do it in the teal like I'm doing it. I just like this color, so I'm going to use it. Or if you want to alternate, you can. That's completely up to you. That spot had a little bit of too much blue. So let me try it again. All right. And as you can see, I'm just doing one stroke all the way around, not going back and forth. So while we're letting all this dry, I'm going to put a few little accents into my head of my turtle and on the flippers. So I'm using this teal because I really like it. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on my brush, just kind of following the lines around. very lightly using my brush. You can also put a little bit more pressure on there and I'll give you a little bit thicker line. So I did that all with the teal. And I'm going to go back here and just do one more scoop of the teal around the edges, while I'm letting all of that blue dry. There we go. So we're going to let that dry for just a second more. Rinse this off really good. Then I'm going to dry it off with my paper towel. And it's still wet in a few spots, so I'm going to give it just a second more. If you want to pause your video, you can. I don't have a blow dryer here to dry it, but while we're waiting, I'm going to take my tape off. So you can take it off little by little. Just make sure your hands are clean. That way you don't get any of the marks from your hands on your words. I am still going to do another layer of blue on the outside here. I'm just doing this to kill some time here. If you feel better leaving it on, you can, but I'm all done painting the inside part. I'm just going to focus on the outside part. All right. So now that we've done that, we're going to take just the navy blue all by itself, not mixed with any color, just wiping my brush off, making sure I got all the teal off of there. And I'm using just the navy blue paint now. I'm going to go back over where these spots are that are darker. Again, you may want to let it dry for just a few more minutes because mine's getting a little bit of white in there. This is going to make those spots darker. And I made these colors just a little bit lighter than the ones that I have on the turtle right now, just so you can see a color difference. And again, remember this is wood, so if you see a few little streaks in your paint, it's okay. It's not canvas, it's not gonna lay flat for you. And honestly, the little bit of streaks you see, I think gives it more texture and more of that oceany rustic look. So this is my first coat of the dark blue. Just gonna give it a second to dry. Kind of going back in and just kind of getting the big duck lines out. It dries a little quicker. I'm gonna let that dry for just a second. I'm gonna rinse out my brush again. I'm gonna dry it off again. And I'm gonna use a little bit of white, just plain white, not mixed with anything. I'm gonna put just a tiny bit on the end of my brush here, and I'm gonna do a few little accents in the white. So I'm gonna go kind of in the same pattern as I did with the other lines, trying not to cover them up, either go below them or above them. And then that just gives it a second accent across there. So letting this dry just a few more minutes, because we want to put in another coat of blue, and then we want to put some white accents on the dots as well. So if you have to pause this to let it dry, feel free. Now our backboard is completely dry, and in your kit you will have some glue. Let me just grab my tube of glue, show you. I have a few used ones, so I'm going to use those up. But you'll get a small tube of glue, and that'll be more than enough to glue your project together. Okay, so now we're going to put a second coat of the dark blue. Now, if you wanted to see what this would do, you could take a scoop of the dark blue and mix it with the green and the white that you had from before, if you like, and see what color that gives you. That might give you a whole nother shade of blue, and you may like it. So I did 2 scoops of the dark blue, 1 scoop of the green, the dark green, and then 1 scoop of the white. But I think I'm going to add a second scoop of the dark green. So now I have 2 scoops of the dark blue, 2 scoops of the dark green, and 1 scoop of white. And it gives you a completely different color, like a green blue. Now, if you want to use that on top of the blue you already have, or you can just use dark blue again, whatever you prefer. So I'm going to try this on a few and see if you like it, or see if I like it. And then maybe I'll do every other. So this is the darker of the 2 blues. It looks very teal to me. Do a couple there. You can do every other one if you like, and then do the opposite one, the dark blue. That's completely up to you. I'm going to just try it on mine to see if you like it. And you can make your own mind up. So again, that was 2 scoops of the dark blue, 2 scoops of the dark green, and 1 scoop of white mixed together. Not much of a color difference there, but you definitely will be able to see the darker blue opposed to this color. So I did every other circle with this color, or half circle, I should say. It's like a slate blue, a little bit more of a slate blue. So I'm going to put that back in the water. Rinse it out really good. Then dry it off on my paper towel. And now I'm going to use the dark blue in the opposite spots. Just the dark blue by itself, not mixed with any colors. So in the opposite spots of that green that we just used, and then you'll be able to get a better idea of what you like better. I think I put 2 in a row here. That's okay. And you may like the different color combinations here. It looks kind of cute. I like it. So as you can see, the dark blue darkens as you go more, put more coats on. And if you wanted to do a third coat, you could, whatever works best for you. This turtle looks almost stained, like a stained glass piece. It's just so many different shades. Okay, I like that. So this one is two-toned. So this has a lighter blue and a darker blue. Every other one is either lighter blue or darker blue. And because these almost look the same, I'm going to take the darker blue and I'm going to put little highlights in the bubbles here. But you can again do it with white if you like, whatever color you want to do it with. Barely touching my brush to my board. Very gentle touch. And then I'm going to put a little bit of the darker blue in the accents, but just on one side. So mostly on the bottom here. And maybe a little bit in the head. There we go. That looks really, really cute. Now I'm going to rinse my brush again. Make sure I get it all cleaned out. I'm just going to make a little bit more of that teal color. Just to make it pop just a little bit more. So I made just a tiny bit of the teal. I'm going to wipe some off on my napkin here just because it's a lot. And I'm going to make just another line right across the top here. Very gently brushing it on because I feel like the first line kind of faded out a little bit as it dried down. And be careful getting close to your blue. You don't want to smudge it. All right, I like that a little better. It pops just a little bit more. Hit my blue, just like I told you guys not to do. So this is going to take just a second to dry, but you can still glue it while it's drying because your flippers will be a little bit dry here for you to do, but you don't want to lay it flat. So open your glue prior. So you're going to take this little part of the glue, it has a little pointy thing on it. You're going to take that off and you're going to turn it around and you're going to pop it into the foil part of the tube and pop the hole to make it open up. Okay, so you can take the glue and you could start putting it on. I don't know if this one's dried up or not. I'm going to put some on my turtles here. And it dries clear, so you don't really, if you get it outside the lines, it's okay. That one's almost gone, so I'm going to switch over to another container of glue. Should be fun. Trying to open this one while I have this one in my hand. You will have a brand new tube of glue, so you won't have to worry about it being almost gone. I'm just trying to use up spare parts of stuff that I have here in the studio. So in your kit, you'll have a brand new one. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue here. You don't need a ton of glue on any of them. The reason being is that this E6000 is like super glue. It just takes a few minutes to set up, but once it's all set up, you're good to go. I'm just poking a hole in it. It has a little bit of dry stuff there. So I'm going to put some on the flippers here on the V of the tail. I'm also going to put some up here on this flipper around the head here. Like I said, you'll have a full tube of glue, so you'll have more than enough to put on the back of your turtle. I'm going to put a little here, and a little here, and a little on the edges over here. Okay, so once you have glue on there, as you can see, I didn't go crazy. It just needs to be enough to stick and hold down. So here's my backboard. And on that one up there, we made it a little tilted so that it was the welcome was straight. So that's going to be our goal here, is to make it so that the word welcome is straight on our board and the turtle is swimming off to the edge just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and press it down in the dry spots where we know it's dry. And this is going to take about 15 minutes to set up. So you have to let the E6000 set to the board where if you go to touch it, it doesn't move. And the reason I say that is because if you hold it up like this, it could slide off the board. So we're going to give it just a few minutes so that we can't move it, because right now you can still move it. So here's the holes at the top, and the welcome should be straight across on the board. So wherever you need to move the turtle to make that happen, and then just press it down. And over here, I just, from holding it with my wet white thumb, I got a little bit of white on the edge of the foot. So I'm just finishing it there. And the good thing about the E6000 is that you can move it. So if you don't feel like your welcome is straight, you can turn your turtle as much or as little as you need to. So here I am looking at it straight on, and I feel it's pretty straight. So it works for me. So now we got our cute little bow that we're going to add to it. And again, just be careful because this is still wet here. If you let it dry, you won't have to worry about it. But for the video's sake, I'm just moving along here so that you can see everything. You will have a piece of rope to tie on it as well. So what you'll need to do is turn it this way so that you can reach it. And here I like the darker blue behind it so that the word doesn't blend in as much. I don't know if you can see that compared to the other one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape just to hold up my board so I can show you how to do the knot. You're going to take your rope and you're going to stick it through the front of your board. I don't know why my piece of rope here is just all weird. It's all right. Stick it through the front. And what you're going to do is you're going to take it and you're going to tie it in a knot where the knot is behind the board like this. And then you're going to take this little tail and you're going to wrap it around the back of the rope and come around, around the front of the rope, come around and pull the tail through the hole on the back side of the board so that the knot goes behind the board or closer to the top. As you can see here, it goes closer to the top, but the tail goes behind the board so that you don't have the tail sticking out. And then I'm going to do a second one over here. Now, if you want your rope to be shorter than the one I give you, just pull it to the length that you desire, like this. Say if you want it shorter, then tie it, and then you can cut off that extra in the back. So go ahead and tie the knot again on the back of the board. And again, bring the tail over, under, over, under, and then over like this, so that the knot is in the back of the board and the tail goes down behind the board. And again, I have this extra piece and I'll cut it off after just because I didn't want my rope to be that long, but I don't know where everyone will be hanging theirs. So I'm going to give you a little bit extra rope so that way you can make it the length you want. And then to put the bow on, you're going to take, I'm going to use this side of the board just because the flipper's on this side and it will cover up some of that. So I don't want to cover that up. Again, I'm just using the tape to hold the board up. I'm sticking one of these tails of the bow into the hole here. Let me just move this up so you can see it. Sticking it into the hole here, and then I'm pulling it through. And you should really wait till this is dry just so you don't get paint on your bow, and you can tilt your board up and move it around. So to show you what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold it like this so that you can see on the video. I'm going to tie a knot on the back of this bow on the back of the board. So only one piece goes into the hole and the other piece goes around the top of the hole. And then I'm going to tie it again. And if you tie this in a knot in the hole, it just makes it a little bit tighter for you and it stays on a little bit better. Stays on a lot better. And then I'm going to just tie it tight there. And I'm going to pull the strings down so that the tails of the strings hang on the back of the board as well. So there you go. You have a bow, you have a rope, and you have a painted turtle. I hope you enjoy the class, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of your pictures when they're done. And I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Then you can play with your bow and fluff it. It also has wire in it, so you can push it up just a little bit to fluff it up. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.